All right, moving to our last video for this test one review, we're going to look at some multiple choice questions. You will have a multiple choice section on your test. So here are some ideas to know some ways some questions could be worded. Not exactly like this, but similar style of question. So number one, we've got a 13-year study of 1,328 adults randomly selected from a population. They're carefully monitored in their personal habits and health conditions. Personal habits are tobacco use and coffee consumption, health conditions, instance of stroke. Which of the following cannot be answered? So A, are coffee drinkers more likely to smoke than adults who do not drink coffee? B, does coffee consumption cause a reduction in the instance of stroke? And C, do coffee drinkers have fewer strokes than adults who do not drink coffee? And then D, what percentage of the population are coffee drinkers? The correct answer here is choice B. I couldn't answer this, and it all comes down to the word cause here. As we saw in the last video in this review, you use the word cause when you run an experiment, when you have randomized groups doing different items, different things. But this is just an observation. We're just following these 1,328 people, looking at their tobacco use, their coffee consumption, instance of stroke, but we're not splitting them into groups and monitoring and manipulating the amount of coffee they drink and their tobacco usage. So it's just an observation. We can't use that cause and effect relationship here. Similar in number two, we've got a sleep study. Researchers ask a random sample of college students how many hours of sleep they typically get each night. They record each student's GPA. The sample showed that students who sleep less than 5 hours a night are twice as likely to have a GPA below 2.5 than those who sleep 7 or 8 hours a night. Can you conclude that sleeping less than 5 hours a night causes, there's that keyword again, a college student's GPA to drop below 2.5? And the answer is choice A. This is no. The result is just an observational study. Again, we don't have randomized groups where different variables are manipulated. We're just asking students, what's your GPA? How many hours of sleep are you getting each night? Just observing what's happening. There may be a confounding variable here that's having an effect on both of these, like a student's work schedule. If a student has a work schedule where they work all night from, say, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., they may not be able to get a lot of sleep. And then it may also have an effect on their GPA when they can attend class and other factors like that. Moving to question number 3. A study was designed to estimate the proportion of adults who intend to vote in the next presidential election in the U.S. The researchers want to generalize the results to all voters in the next presidential election. They pulled a sample of 100 adults who attended a Major League Baseball game in Tampa and volunteered to take a survey. Will this sample likely be representative of the U.S. population? A says yes because it's a large sample. B says yes because the survey among baseball fans would reflect the overall tendency of the U.S. vote. C, baseball fans may not even constitute a majority among U.S. voters. Or D, the sample is a voluntary response sample of people at a baseball game in Tampa instead of a random sample of people across the country. Hopefully you see right away that D is the best choice. This is not a good sample. If we want to represent voters across the entire country, we need to get a sample of voters from across the entire country, not just voters or people at a baseball game in Tampa. That's not going to represent everybody's viewpoint. And moving to our last page with our last 2 examples, our last 2 questions. For number 4, which of the following data sets is the median a better measure of center than the mean? Remember, use the median when your data set is skewed, and you'll use the mean as the measure of center when your data set is more symmetric, when you've got that normal shape, that bell shape, or just the left and the right are the same. So in this case, in A, you've got 10 in the middle, and then to the left of that 2, 4, 6, and 8. To the right of that 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. These are all evenly clustered. The left-hand side, 2, 4, 6, and 8 are just as close as 12, 14, 16, 18. So this is a symmetric distribution. We would calculate the mean for A, not the median. If we move to B, you have the number 16 in the middle. On the left, you have 1, 2, 4, and 8. And on the right, you have 32, 64, 128, and 256. 1, 2, 4, and 8 are much closer together compared to 32, 64, 128, and 256. We're seeing big gaps over here. This ends up being a skewed data set. And so because it's skewed, the median would be better for choice B. If we look at C and D quickly, on C, you've got 1 in the middle, ones to the left, just as clustered as the ones to the right. Symmetric, same thing on D. You've got 0 in the middle, -1, -2, -3, and -4, or just as close together as 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's another symmetric distribution. So we'd use the mean for that one as well. And number 5, just a fast fact, if the mean is smaller than the median, the distribution is typically, and that is skewed left. If your distribution is skewed right, your mean is typically larger than the median. If it is symmetrical, it's usually same or similar to the median. Finally, things we didn't really go into depth here, but note for test, think about counting variables through your notes, videos regarding those, and the idea of standard deviation. Remember that standard deviation is how much values typically vary from the mean. If I say the average on test 1 is a 75, that doesn't mean that everybody made a 75. There's some variation. Some are above that, some are below that. If I know that the standard deviation was 5, I could go 5 points above the 75, 5 points below the 75, and that's where your typical grades would be, from that 70 to 80. So we'll wrap this video up here. Good luck studying, and please reach out if you have any questions.